Hello and good evening. This is Doc Severson for the ReadySetCrypto OMNIA newsletter market update for Tuesday, the 7th of January. About 2 hours left in the session today for this candle. Nice green volume setting up. Nice gains today, up almost 4%. Nice move, like everything about it. Now we talked about the inverted head and shoulders over the weekend. Let's see how this is playing out. So again, we're looking for the depth of the head pattern up to the neckline being the upside measured move target. That puts the upper target somewhere around 8,700 or so. Will it get there? We don't know. Now, there's a certain amount of optimism, like, okay, is this the one? And this is what happens with every bear move or corrective move like this, is that everybody gets all excited, like, okay, here's the one. Okay, that wasn't it. Okay, here's the one. That wasn't it. Okay, here's the one. And you're never really quite sure. And this is really what makes the market so challenging, especially in corrective, is that you just never know. The opposite of that is when markets are in these, primary uptrends like this, where it seems like every time it looks like it's about ready to die, it just one more shot and everybody chases after that. And then, as you can see, the transition goes into sideways and volatile, and off we go, trending to the downside again. So this one's been very different. It's hard for me to call this a bear, really. I mean, it's down from the highs. It's certainly down from the highs more than 20%, but that isn't really a logical standard to use in the crypto market. On the weekly chart, this is still just a large channel to the downside. I think really the most accurate view of this is still the monthly chart on the log scale. Monthly chart on the log scale. And let's get that little trend line thing out of there for right now. We don't need that. We're going to remove that. So you can see that this is just more of a pennant setting up, or a symmetrical triangle setting up in consolidation. And we've looked at the energy on this thing before, and it's still a little bit deficient from this incredible move to the upside, similar to what happened during this one. So this is really if we really pull back from this thing, this is really the context that this market is dealing with right now, is still this enormous move, which went from 2015 to 2017. We're still paying for it. We are still paying for that move. And we haven't convinced everybody that it's dead yet. And once we do, this is when things are going to take off. Now, I have gone into this before, that what I hope doesn't have to happen is I hope we don't have to retest this level again. And, I hope we don't have to retest this level again. 1200 would be really nasty, although I would imagine that there would be just an unbelievable slingshot move off of there if that did occur. Remember that larger time frames dominate the trend. Right now, the trend on the monthly chart is sideways, but the trend on the weekly chart is to the downside. So if we do break this trend line, we may have a quick trip down to 3,000 and or 1,200. Larger time frame picture, though, still looks good, believe it or not, looking at this chart. So as you can see, if all you look at is just the daily chart, you're going to get lost in the weeds in this guy. You're not going to know what's happening. Okay, so is this the trend line? I don't know. I don't know if this is specifically the accurate trend line. The problem is that we have so many different points to pick from. So it begins to be a very subjective exercise. Now, what I thought I'd do is bring up a new tool that I'm kind of working around with these days, which is called Trend Spider. And one of the things that they do is they feature trend lines, automated trend line analysis. So there's a few different ways that we can look at this. And the advantage of doing something like this is you might see things that you might not have seen with your own eye. So this is one way to look at this big pattern right now, is one larger time frame rising trend line and a smaller time or the same time frame descending trend line. So this is a great big, just a triangle pattern. Okay, so that's one way to look at this. Let's look at Another way to look at this, we can look at this as kind of the weekly pattern that I showed. And there's a bunch of different trend lines on here. This all depends on, again, like I said, depends on which points of view that you pick. So one point of view, which was the first high and then the middle high here, shows that the price might be finding resistance right there at this trend line. That's possible. That's possible to do. Okay. So let's see, something else that we can do. We can go down to, I think enhanced is one we haven't looked at yet. And this has got all kinds of trend lines around here. You can see that it's kind of interesting that they did show the inverted head and shoulders neckline here. So that trend line did show up under this, as well as some other ones. So I think it's important that you look at things from all different angles. I haven't seen anything so far that's shown me that we've missed this one. So keep in mind, guys, these are just a series of lower highs on the weekly chart. And more than likely what's going to happen is this is going to rocket up. Again, the volume on this has been a little bit less than the one from this move. And so more than likely what we're going to be printing is another lower high. Now this is good. What I like about the fact is that we did get the undercut of 6,500 and we did not have to test it the third time, because what I talked about was saying there's no such thing as a quadruple bottom. Triple bottom's okay. And this didn't get to a triple bottom. It got to a higher low and took off from there. Don't know the reason why. It doesn't really matter. So once we get up here, we might be in a position where we can take an inexpensive out of the money debit put spread at the expected move target. And that should be an inexpensive trade, which is going to be more of a low probability speculative trade. So once we get up to this point, perhaps in a couple of days, we'll look at placing that trade. Maybe anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks out, I think would be enough time for that to set up. This is the great thing about options, is that you can create these speculative trades that are very, very inexpensive. So it doesn't take you much. And if the price takes off like this, that you don't have to go scrambling to get out of it, which is the case if you were to use futures or any other directional instrument. So setting up a limited risk option trade is always my favorite way to do something like this. All right, guys, that is it for today's report. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.